Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Players of Games. I am William, and today we have Chris
Hello.
and Brandon.
Howdy.
And
Does it
today,
ever bother anyone
what?
that when we do this, we always seem to introduce us in reverse alphabetical order? But that's just because you're the host, Will.
I, if you
I
guys
just thought
want
about
to,
that. That was just a weird thought of mine today. For we are about to talk about a weird topic, considering what we've talked about in the past. Yes, I am forcing these transitions
okay.
entirely.
Well, Chris, would you like to say what our topics are going to be?
Considering it was my idea, that's what I was hoping for. So we kind of have a two-topic thing here. We're going to be talking about moments of triumph we've had in games where we overcame difficulties stacked against us in whatever regard, and then situations in games that almost seem uniquely designed to anger us. Disclaimer, we know they're not. There are no game designers out there shaking their fist and saying, I'd really like Brandon to tilt.
Hmm.
There might be one we know, but we're not talking about him today. Brandon made sure of it.
Some things are left to the ether.
Maybe another day.
So, who would like to begin with one of their stories?
I'm forcing you to, Will.
Okay. Then, what do you guys think? Should I start with my trigger story or my success story?
Well, let's go in order. We talk about the success and then the anger.
All right. My success has to do with Magic the Gathering. It was at a pre-release for I believe it was Fate Reforged. It was the Tarkir block and it was the middle set. It was the only pre-release that I actually won. And it felt so good to win because it was the last game that just was so awesome. So there's a card called Whisperwood Elemental that I think it's a 4/4 green. I don't have it in front of me right now. I'll probably put it on.
You'll put the stats on screen.
Yeah. So it's a green. What it does is every turn you manifest the top card of your deck, which, if you know the morph ability, that's manifest. It just has to do with the top card of your deck. But
Puts it down as a creature, has stats, and if it's a creature on the other side, because it's face down, you can flip it up.
right. But the problem was that me and my opponent were just at equal standing. We both had solutions or stuff that was able to block each other, and we were just at a stalemate. And we just did not know how to get around each other until I had this one card out. It's the special scrying orb that from that set that allows you to look at the top card of your library. Now, I know in most competitive sense you don't want to use it. It's not really viable. However, I was able to use it because it was able to show me the next card, so I knew if I wanted to manifest it or not. And it was a card that would make one of my creatures, I believe, get it a +1/+1 counter or something, and then fight target creature. And the problem was that if I let my Whisperwood Elemental stay on the field, that card would get manifested and it was a spell, or I believe a sorcery, which means I wouldn't be able to use it. So I had to creatively use Whisperwood Elemental's other ability, which allows me to sacrifice it. Which, if you sacrifice it, all your creatures are given the ability that if they die this turn, you can manifest the top cards of your deck. So I just had to waste that ability and just use its ability to sacrifice itself. So that next turn, I could pick up that fight card, play it down, destroy the thing that was stopping me from attacking him, and I basically won the game because of it. And it just felt so good to be able to use that one card with the Whisperwood Elemental and just completely defeat my last opponent.
That's a very good one. Excellent creative use of what you had in the game.
Mm-hmm.
Brandon's going to sit there and nod his head because he knows nothing about Magic.
Magic is a card game.
He knows one thing about magic. This whole conversation has just been him sitting there listening to what, nodding slowly as we go magic, 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 magic.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
that red vampires should not be allowed.
Mm-hmm.
He knows. He has an opinion about magic. Now, Brandon, what would you say your story of triumph is?
Well, my triumph isn't as glorious as Will's because, unlike Will, instead of eloquently solving the problem, I just bashed my face into the wall until eventually the wall fell over. And I have two stories. So I'll do the shorter one first. So, Halo 3, Legendary, all skulls. I wanted to go through the entire campaign, Legendary, all skulls, and it was so many deaths, so many clutch moments where the AI just blissfully did something ignorant to allow me to get further. And I had the assistance of a friend and my brothers to get through this. So, I was cheesing it because I wasn't doing it solo. Some people have done it full on solo, and it's absolutely crazy. But that moment, when you finally take off from the Warthog run in Halo 3 and it goes to the cutscene, oh my gosh, it's like an achievement beyond imagine because it's over. I'm not gonna die 1,000 more times. Oh, that was like absolute euphoria. But the other one, which is far more recent, and I had put a lot of thought and strategy into this, was a Iron Man lone wolf, low economy veteran run of Battle Brothers. Now, the thing about Lone Wolf is there's like two state of minds to winning or getting into the mid game of a Lone Wolf run. You either truck through getting your Lone Wolf character to level 10, so you power level him by himself, which makes him very likely to die a lot. Or you take mooks with you in small amounts and you kind of power level yourself and like the few guys that you want to keep alive. That one has a higher survivability rate, but it usually makes your transition into the mid and late game a lot slower because you haven't power leveled a guy that just smashed through the competition. And in the higher difficulties, being able to smash through the competitions way more powerful. So I had restarted this again and again and again. What my objective was to get 3 fights that were capable fights my character could win. So they had to be humanoid fights with like around 6 enemies, and I had to not get caught off by any other attacks. So, I had to not get murdered by random encounters. There was a lot of trial and error, but I finally got exactly the stars to align with the 3 human encounters. And then, right before I return to safety, I get attacked by wolves. Now, wolves early game, they can be very deadly. They get 2 to 3 attacks depending on if they've moved and if the dire wolves or whatnot. And I was really low on armor, which means few attacks and they will just hit right through me. Luckily, I've power leveled myself, but this is like the moment, the make or break, whether I finally get a run to work. So, get myself to the high ground, play the odds, and it works out. I skimp away with like 10 HP on this guy. And it was just amazing. Yeah, like there's a lot of RNG to it, but at the same time, you're positioning your strategy, playing the odds, taking calculated risks, that determines whether you get stun locked, whether you have a high enough confidence resolve to hit confidence when you enter combat, knowing where and when to attack. That's pretty much what plays out for how to succeed in Battle Brothers, my bad. And finally being able to get that run to go through was amazing.
I could feel it. The moment you said you got out of there with that much HP, I could feel your satisfaction and your relief. Chris?
So mine is mostly for a game that among a lot of the friends and people you've seen come with on the podcast, I think I'm the only one who's played the games as much as I think most of you guys haven't really touched them, of the Dark Souls series.
Okay.
And while I wish I could talk about my triumph of trying to do a no-death run of Dark Souls 2, I'm still working on that.
It's not easy.
But in Dark, I usually die to stupid me getting overconfident issues. And then doing something stupid I really shouldn't have done, and I know better. But
happens to most people.
When it comes to Dark Souls 3, trying to get through the games and then the final DLC boss, without spoiling it, he's tough, he has a lot of phases, and you can really switch up how you have to operate on things. And I had a ton of difficulty fighting him. Because he has a lot of stuff that's tuned to be very good at fighting against you and some of the things you do if you have certain habits. And I didn't necessarily have issues with those habits, but he's tough. He's quick, he does a lot, he's very acrobatic, moves a lot, has a lot of weird attacks that you're not always ready for. Can really catch you off guard.
What size?
He's not too big. He's not like any of the gigantic bosses.
Okay.
But I was determined to fight him alone, because you can always generally summon help, but I didn't want to. I wanted to fight him alone.
Oh, that pride.
It took me forever. But I remember the day I beat him so much, because I had been trying to beat him the night before. Was getting very angry at my own mistakes I was making when fighting him and failing. So I turned off the game, took a break, paused, went to bed. Woke up the next day, had work later, but I wanted to try and beat him. I played 2 games that day. Died very quickly the first, and then somehow just hit that state of zen on that second. And I won't say I played perfectly, but it was darn well good enough to beat him. Just had times it was a gameplay where I feel I had stopped making the mistakes I was making in the previous ones. I think I have a recording of it somewhere, maybe. But just thinking back, I feel like I recall getting him very low in health, and I probably could have taken certain chances to beat the boss, but that was what had caught me off in so many other things, is I had gotten greedy and tried to finish him off quickly and then wasn't able to before he was able to retaliate, and I wasn't prepared for it. So I won't say I played perfectly, but I stopped making the mistakes that were stopping me from victory.
Now that's one of the biggest challenges. I know most gamers have that problem of being able to fight through those problems that they know they're making, but can't seem to get rid of.
Yep, the greatest enemy is thyself.
And that's honestly one of my favorite things about just the Dark Souls series. It's always the case. You will learn a thing and know you shouldn't do certain things, but you will always catch yourself doing them. and you have to teach yourself to not make the mistakes you want to make.
Mm-hmm.
Now, when it comes to your own unique torturous experience, Will, what would that be? And I know this is going to be difficult. That's why I'm forcing it on you first, and then
Well,
Brandon after.
it has to do with my favorite game series, Pokemon. I think it was Pokemon Sapphire. Now, when it comes to Pokemon, or at least Pokemon Ruby and Sapphire, probably the hardest Pokemon you can ever get is Feebas. But that wasn't my problem. I was able to eventually get a Feebas. No, the problem was I wasn't sure how to make it evolve. According to the Pokedex, or how you're supposed to evolve it, you need to max out beauty. I did not understand what this meant, so I interpreted it as I need to beat all of the beauty contests in the region. And that included the Master Beauty Contest. And that was the nightmare, and especially the Electrode. So, when you play Pokemon Ruby and Sapphire, you have, of course, the normal stats of strength, or attack, defense, special attack, special defense, and all the like. However, when it comes to contests, you have a different ranking. You have beauty, toughness, coolness, and a few others. But I was focusing on beauty. And what I did not realize at the time was that in order to make your beauty better, to make it easier to win Pokemon contests in any area, you have to give your Pokemon Pokeblocks, which will raise its stats. I did not realize this, and so I was using a Feebas with no beauty stats at all to try and win the Master level contest, which is the hardest one. And it just took me, I would almost say, years to beat. I just could not do it. And then one day, I was actually able to win. It's not that it made me feel good. This is still my torture, because it took me so long, and the stupid Electrode would always use self-destruct, which would always give it completely high beauty stats, which would always win it the contest. And then finally, I won with a Feebas with no beauty stats, and it didn't evolve. I finally figured out I needed the Pokeblocks, and then I statted it out, leveled it up, and it evolved. All of that work for nothing.
Oh, yeah. I'm sorry for laughing, but
I understand.
you're just you were very good at storytelling with that.
I tried.
It's just that
Feebas.
knowing that Pokemon and that series, it's just sitting here listening to you. It's just all the steps along the road were made for the right reasons, but the game didn't explain well enough for you. Oh.
I eventually won with the Feebas with no beauty. I don't know how I did it, but I did it.
RNG on your side.
Sometimes when you come to the wall, you just keep smashing your face up against it until it falls over.
Stupid.
And sometimes it falls over.
Stupid
one of these days,
Electrode.
Will, me and you are gonna record a Nuzlocke. I feel like you'd be fun to record a Nuzlocke with.
It would certainly be interesting.
Don't forget to name them. You have to get attached.
You have to name them. It's in the rules. Now, Brandon, what would you say your unique torturous experience is?
So, I mean, I'm going to talk about a game that not a lot of people know. Maybe not a lot of people have played. It's a game by the name of Saga Frontier. It was released for PlayStation. What was it? Back in 97, 98? Yeah, North American release was in 98. So The game was ported to English. I did have an English copy, but my God, was the port so bad. Um, the English was very broken. Directions were so hard to understand. And you gotta remember, I'm playing this game like at I think it was 11, maybe 10. So I have no clue what I'm being told to do in the game by any of the dialogue. Uh, but the game's music and visuals just like captivated me as a kid. So I was obsessed with this game. I needed to be able to play it. And the problem was every single one of the characters, I got stuck on the first level with every single one of them. Okay? Do you know how many characters there are? There are 7 playable protagonists with their own storylines. I got stuck on every single one of them. Every single one. It drove me nuts. And the first one I played was Red, and Red's like this uh, punk teenager with spiky anime protagonist hair and all. And he, like literally, his intro scene is just this car driving down the road, which then crashes, and bam, you're right into a boss fight. That was just like so epic for me as a kid. And right after the boss fight, you're put into this area on this map with no direction, and I couldn't get out of that map. I never was able to beat this game as a kid. I always got stuck, and it drove me absolutely mad. I fell in love with this game, and as a kid, I could never, ever beat it. I just couldn't.
I think that's gonna be running theme. Can't beat as a kid.
Oh no.
No?
No, mine is current. Mine is ongoing,
Oh no.
and it's about Destiny, which you have heard me on this podcast talk about why I love it. Or at least like it. Now here's some of my issues. So, I mostly because there are some match-made activities, play Destiny content solo. I don't really have friends that play it. I am an avoidant enough person that I haven't joined a clan to maybe find some friends in there that can help me through some of this content. But I mostly play stuff solo. And there's a lot of stuff that you cannot get through solo. And I accept that. I know I'm not a caliber of player that can solo a raid or other content like that. But there is content which isn't designed for many people, that isn't necessarily, it's just tedious. Because they want you to do it with a team. But you're also not match made and given a team to do it. So you have to try and find people through external sites, or just maybe, for most people, joining a clan and asking clanmates to help. And again, I am I don't always do well with social interactions with people I don't know. That's just me. I'm a somewhat shy person, and then people in the comments laugh and go, "But Chris, you're recording a podcast. Aren't you talking to theoretically as many people as can be talked to? Because anyone can just click on this episode and listen to you talk." Yes, but I'm not talking to you directly. I'm talking in a thing with friends about stuff. And other people can listen.
It's our attempt at being social.
We're failing miserably.
Not always.
But
And
anyway,
it's
Chris.
not that I'm just so completely a shut-in that I can't talk to people. I could. I feel like my main issue is just that standard fear of, you know, try to get help for this, and then we can't get through it in the time I have set aside to be able to do it. And I just feel like a failure because even bringing in help, I couldn't do it. Or I'll try to barrel through a thing solo, and I can't do it. And I've done some very difficult stuff in that game solo. When I played the first Destiny, there were activities called Nightfalls, which are basically normally a 3-person strike, just with added difficulty modifiers. There were a few I soloed, and in Destiny 1, I soloed them at the time when dying in a Nightfall didn't just reset you back to a checkpoint, it kicked you back to orbit, which meant you had to start the whole thing again, which meant, as a solo player, I could not die once. Or I'd have to restart the whole thing.
I certainly
And there's a
feel
few
you
I
on that
succeed.
pain.
And there's a few I succeeded at. Again, by brute forcing my way into it. And while the stuff in a lot of stuff in Destiny 2 isn't that bad, there's stuff I've tried to do because I like collecting the exotic weapons, especially the ones you get from quests, because they're guaranteed. You do the quest, you get the thing. And there are so many that are just sitting unclaimed because I'm at a step to do a quest or a thing that I cannot do on my own. And I do not have the time to brute force my head against it. And thus, I either keep brute forcing my head against it and get frustrated because I'm not able to do it, or try to find people to help me and risk bringing myself into negative social interaction that I'm not going to have fun in. And that's not to say that the community is toxic. There's a lot of good people out there who will help you through this content. Me, in my own personal headspace, just always feels like I'm being a burden by asking people. Or I might end up wasting their time. And I know these people will never say that. But I feel like that's my own stubborn pride being like, you shouldn't have to rely on them, Chris. You should be able to do it yourself. And that is my unique torture when I play that game.
Darn your
Don't worry,
pride.
Chris. I believe that you can get good.
Honestly, what does that say about me? I have these unique issues with doing certain things in games and what that does to my head. And then I seek out those games.
Hey,
Dark Souls, Destiny.
the more of a challenge, the more rewarding it is to win.
This is what Dark Souls has done to me. That was the first one. That was what started it.
And that's why we need to play more multiplayer games together, so that you can believe in the power of friendship.
Don't believe that strong in the power of friendship.
So hey guys, when we're done recording, duck game?
Duck game. Woohoo!
And maybe we can talk
All
about
right.
that next week.
Maybe. We can even fill a whole podcast with it.
Oh, we could go on for hours on Duck Game.
But anyway, that is actually all the time we have. So thank you all for joining us. Thank you for listening to our successes and our failures.
Horrifying failures.
And our tragedies.
Put down
And
in
our
the,
traumas.
put down in the comments your successes and trials and tribulations, so that we can look at what you've gone through. And we will see you next week. Make sure to hit the subscribe and bell icon. And see
If you
then.
like our content, share it with your friends. See if they'd
Yes.
like it. The more people to see it, the better we do.
Yay!
And the more I feel we're not just pissing in the wind.
Yay! And thank you all, and we'll see you next time. Bye.
Later, y'all.
Woo-hoo.